Boker Tov, Chodesh Tov. Today's daf is daf Mem Aleph in Matthias. We learn for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Sunnah Masar V'Shivya. Mishnah. We're at the Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Amid Beis. Amafkir Chavasei Sachavero. If a person deposited something, Reuben deposited something with Shimon the Nifgad, V'Leichtula Balam Makom. The owner did not designate a certain spot. He says, just give it to him, put it wherever you want. The Tiltula. And now the Nifgad, Shimon, who was watching the item, he moved it around, the nishtabra, and it broke. If it fell out of his hand and he broke it and he had picked it up he had moved it for his own purposes, then he's chayiv to pay because you're a shomer. You were told to leave this here, and you were told just to watch this item. He didn't designate a spot for it, but you had no business picking it up for your own use. You picked it up for your own use. You're chayiv to pay. If you pick it up for its own purpose, in other words, you had to move it. Maybe there was a flood coming in, and you moved it, and then so you were trying really to protect the item. Then you're potter. Okay, fine. Right. But in all these cases we're talking about where you picked it up without the owner's knowledge. Okay, so if you picked it up for its own purposes and he didn't designate a place for it, okay, for the item's purpose, that's okay. Let's say you put it back. Bein letzorcho potter. Says the Tanakama, and we'll see this Tanakama's Rabbi Shmuel says, once you put it back, your potter, even if it broke after you had picked it up for your own purpose. After you put it down, it broke. Whether you had put it back down, whether you had picked it up for your own purpose originally, but now you put it down, once you put it back, your potter. This gets into the question when you use something, when you misappropriate something that belongs to somebody else, and you take it, do you have to make sure that the owner knows you're giving it back, or if you put it back in the spot, that's good enough? We'll see this first part of the Mishnah goes like Rabbi Shmuel says, if I picked something, even though I was unauthorized to pick it up and use it, however, once I put it back, even if I misappropriate, I wasn't supposed to take it, I took it for my own purpose, once I put it back, it's fine, I'm potter. Okay, then the Mishnah goes on to say, this is the Sefer, let's say the owner designated a spot for it, and then when you moved it, once he designated a spot for it, and you picked it up for your own purposes, the Mishnah goes on, whether it's in your hand or whether you put it back, for your own purposes, even after you put it back, you are chayiv. But if you picked it up for its own purposes, you were trying to protect the item, then of course you're potter. Fine. But we see a difference between the first part of the Mishnah and the second part of the Mishnah. First part of the Mishnah said, once you put it back, even if you were unauthorized to pick it up, once you put it back, you're out of the picture, you're fine. The second part of the Mishnah says, no. If he designated a spot for it and you put it back, you're still chayiv. If you had picked it up for your own purposes, for your purposes, you're still chayiv until you let the owner know that you put it back. This goes into a machlokas between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. Says the Gemara, the first part of the Mishnah goes like Bishmuel the Omer, Lo Bina Das Balam. If I picked up something, as long as I put it back, I'm okay. I don't if I picked it up for myself. I wanted to use it. As long as I put it back, that's good enough. The Tanya Hagon Telem and Eder. You were supposed to guard a flock of sheep, and you stole one of them, or sell them in a kiss, or you're supposed to watch somebody's wallet and you took a coin out of there, and sell them a kiss. The Makom Shagon of Yachsid, Rabbi Shapiro says, just put it back. If you put it back, you're out of the picture, you're fine. Rabbi Kiva says, no, you have to let him know. Once you picked it up, you're a god. You stole it. You gotta let him know that you put it back. Okay, so the first part of the Mishnah says, well, if you put it back, that's okay. Once you put it back, that goes like Bishmal, who says you don't have to let the owner know that you put it back. Says so why talk about if the owner didn't designate a spot for it? Even if he designated a spot for it, fine, he designated a spot, but you put it back. Says no, it's a certain, we're telling you a bigger chiddush. Love me boy, certainly if you put it back in a spot, the makomo, you put it back in the spot, the owner said keep it in this spot. Okay, I picked it up, I shouldn't have, but I put it back in that spot. That's his spot. That's fine. I put it back. It broke afterwards. Okay, not my problem. Even if you didn't designate a spot for it, this is not its spot. There is no spot for it. He didn't designate a spot. You might think over there that, well, you didn't really put it back because there was no spot for it. No. Lo bina dasma, you still don't have to let him know. That's the chiddush of Rabbi Shmuel in the first part of the Mishnah. But aim a sefer. What about the sefer? The sefer says, if the owner designated a spot for it and you moved it, finishber, and you broke it, whether it fell out of your hand while you were playing with it, or after you put it back, if you picked it up for yourself, chayiv. In other words, even if I picked it up and I put it back in its spot, but I was unauthorized, I'm chayiv to pay for it. If it was for its own, in all cases where you when it broke, when you dealt with it, you picked it up to save it, to protect it, then you're potter. But if I picked it up for myself, even if I put it back in the spot that he designated, as it says in Sefer, but if I picked it up for myself and it broke, I'm chayiv because I didn't let him know. So that part, that Sefer the Mishnah goes like a Bekiva. Domer Bin and Das Bailam says you have to let him know. Since you took it, you were unauthorized, you misappropriated it, you took this item, you're effectively a ganef. Even though you put it back in this spot, you're still chayiv to pay if it broke. If it broke, mishenicha, another whether even if it broke afterwards, I didn't have it anymore. I put it back in the spot. I still am chayiv to pay. That goes like a Bekiva says you have to let him know. So your Bekiva, my if it goes over Bekiva, who says that if you picked up something, you are responsible for it until you let the owner know that you put it down. So why talk about if he designated? Why does it say to talk about if he designated a spot? Even if he didn't designate a spot for it, you picked it up. You better let the owner know that you're putting it back. Again, lo mi boy kamer, telling a big lo mi boy lo yachtalah. Certainly, when he didn't designate a spot for it, to lav makomi, you didn't put it back because there is no spot for it. There is no back. If he didn't designate a spot for it, how did you put it back? There was no place for it. The guy gave you something. He says, keep it in your house somewhere. Keep it somewhere. Just hold on to it. So you picked it up and you put it back. When did you put it back? Back where? There was no spot for it. He didn't say his math. Certainly in a case like that, you didn't put it back because there is no back. Even if the owner designated a spot and he said, listen, keep it in this spot. Okay, I picked it up. I'm a bad boy. I'm a ganef, but I put it back in that spot. Isn't that okay? No. The makomo being a dasmam, you have to let the owner know you're giving it back. So if that's the case, the ratio, the first part of the mission that says what? That you're chayiv, that your potter, once you put it back, no matter what, whether it had a spot or didn't have a spot, once you put it back, your potter, right, if it broke afterwards, and the Sefer says you're chayiv, so ratio of Shmuel, Sefer Bekiva, can you say that the Mishnah goes like two different authors? There's ain. Because Rabbi Yochanan said in explaining this Mishnah, whoever can explain this Mishnah, you gave a barrel to somebody, and it broke subsequently after you misappropriated it, you picked it up, you moved it around, and it broke. The first part of the Mishnah says if you put it back, you're okay. The second part of the Mishnah says you're not okay. He says, well, yeah, I can't. There's no way to jive this whole Mishnah like one author. Whoever can explain that this Mishnah goes like one author, meaning that there's not a machlokis in the Mishnah. I'll schlep his clothes for him after the bathhouse. In other words, I'll be his servant for the day if he could explain to me this Mishnah that it goes like one rabbi, because it doesn't. Okay, that's how Rabbi Yochanan learned. That's how the Gemara says so far. Targum Rabbi Yaakov says no. He's going to explain that it all goes like Rabbi Shmuel. Targuma Rabbi Yaakov Barabba, Kamei to Rav, he explained it. Shenat lam and asla gosla. He says, well, when you picked it up, you picked it up. The Mishnah really says, as the Gemara is going to be medayik in a few minutes, but totally you moved it. He says you picked it up in order to steal it. Okay, you picked it up in order to steal it. So what? So what? Again, Rabbi Shmuel says, well, as long as you put it back, it's okay. Targum Rav Nasan Barabba, Kamei to Rav, Shenat lam asla shachid. You wanted to use it. You didn't really mean to steal it, but you meant to use it. Okay, either way, you picked it up, either for your own purposes, either to steal it or use it. So what? So what? So how does this help the Mishnah go like Rabbi Shmuel? As we'll see, the Gemara is going to explain in a minute. He's going to explain the three different rabbis explain the Mishnah that it all goes like Rabbi Shmuel. But what in the Sefer when he says he put it back, he didn't put it back in the designated spot. The Sefer says what that the owner said. Here's the item, put it in this spot. Okay, you picked it up. Say, yeah, Rabbi Shmuel says as long as you put it back, you're okay, right? Even if you didn't let him know. But if you put it back in the wrong spot, that's different. Because he said keep it in this spot. Now you didn't put it back. Because he said put it in this spot. Now that can go like even Rabbi Shmuel would agree. So then the whole Mishnah can go like Rabbi Shmuel. What's the problem with that? As the Gemara is going to explain. So first, we have one opinion. We have Rabbi Yaakov saying, well, he took it to steal it. And the second opinion, Rav Nasan says he took it to use it. What's the machlokas? B'shlichus yad. When the Torah talks about a person using something, sending your hand or using it, tzricha chesaron, does it mean that you damaged it? Or does it just mean even if you didn't damage your chayav? Mando, the one who says he took it to steal shlichus yad tzricha chesaron. Over here, he didn't really cause it any damage when he picked it up, right? He put it back down, then it broke afterwards. He didn't pick it up in order to use it, and he didn't break it. In order to be chayav for shlichus yad, for using it, you have to have some loss involved. You damage it in some way. So therefore, why are you chayav over here? The first part, if you used it for your own purpose and it broke while you were holding on to it, took it to steal it. The one who says, no, you went to use it. No, he just took it to use it. That also, for a shomer is forbidden to use it, even if there's no damage. He's the chayiv, even if there's no damage to it. Okay, so that's what they're arguing about. But still, we don't understand yet. How does the Mishnah go like Rabbi Shmuel? I've already explained that he put it back in the wrong place. But Maskell Rav Sheshes asks on these two rabbis, both on Rav Yaakov and on Rav Nassan. That's what I understand. Meaning Tani. You're saying the Mishnah is speaking about where he took it. He picked it up, he took it. He stole it, or he went to use it. Does the Mishnah say that? Tiltlik Tani says he moved it. Moved it is not the same as taking it. Right? Tiltlik. Elo Am Rav Sheshes, my skin conscious Tiltlik Lahavi Lagozas. He took it, he moved it to use it as a ladder. He wanted to schlep some pigeons down from a tree or something. He meant to use it as a ladder. That's not taking it. Right? If I say something, somebody used something, if you take a chair over here and you want to reach something up there, did I take the chair? Nobody would say I took the chair. I moved it in order to use it as a ladder. So you can't say that he took it to steal or he took it to use it. He just moved it. So he says, over here he borrowed. What did he do over here? He borrowed it simply to step on it. He didn't take it. He just wanted to use it but if you use something, Shol Shlomidas, we'll see he's talking about even when there's no loss, especially when there's no loss involved. A Shol Shlomidas, I borrowed something without the owner's knowledge, that's a goslin. And therefore, V'kula Rabbi Shmuel, therefore all three shittas. In other words, we have Rabbi Yaakov who said he stole it. Rab Nassan says he went to use it, right? He went to use it. And even though there was no loss, he went to use it. Rav Sheshes says, no, he just wanted to use it he borrowed it to step on it, to use it as a ladder. But Kula B'Shmuel, and all goes like a B'Shmuel, but Seifa, so it goes like a B'Shmuel. Rav Shmuel says, I don't have to let the owner know if I misappropriated something, I took something, and I'm returning it. As long as I returned it, it's okay. I don't have to let the owner know. So why in the Seifa Machai? The Seifa Shinicha Makom Shein Makoma. In the Seifa, I put it back in the wrong spot. The Seifa says if the owner designated a spot for it, you picked it up and used it. As long as it didn't break, you're fine, no problem. You didn't really do anything wrong. But you must put it back in the spot. As long as you put it back in the spot that the owner designated, you're okay, even if you didn't let him know. It goes like a Bishmal, not a Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says you have to let the owner know, otherwise you're a crook. Rabbi Shmuel says, no, I don't have to let the owner know. As long as I put it back, fine. But over here, if the owner said, put it in this spot, and you put it somewhere else, you didn't put it back. That's why you're chayav. Why didn't Rabbi Yochanan say that? So these three rabbis said the Mishnah can all go like Rabbi Shmuel, and the Sefer is speaking about where he put it back, but he put it back in the wrong spot, so he didn't really put it back. Rabbi Yochanan doesn't like that answer because he nicha b'mkoma mashma. What did the Mishnah say in the Sefer? He set a spot, the owner designated a spot, and you moved it, and it broke. Bein mishehi nicha, whether you put it back, nicha stam means that you put it back in the spot that the owner designated, not a new spot, and therefore he didn't like to learn the way that the whole mission go like Rabbi Shmuel, because hinicha means you put it back presumably in the spot that it was designated for. Therefore, he says that the Mishnah goes like two different shittas. The first part goes like Rabbi Shmuel, who says you don't have to let the owner know. And the Sefer goes like Rabbi Kiva, who says you have to let it know. And since you didn't let him know, you're chayiv either way. Itmar, this very question that we just alluded to, Rav Levi, two rabbis, they argue. They were contemporaries. When the pasuk talks about in Sefer Shmos, when it talks about in Mishpatim, when it talks about a shomer chinam or a shomer sacher, you misusing something, and was using it when he wasn't allowed to. A shomer is supposed to watch it. A shomer or shomer sacher is supposed to watch shomer chinam, shomer sacher. A shoel could use it, right? But he has permission. But a shomer is not supposed to use it at all. And the pasuk, we'll see both Sukkim talk about Mishal. If you used it, you're responsible. So it says over there, what do you mean by using it? So Rabbi, in order to be chayiv means that you caused some damage to it, caused it to be, you diminished it in some way. As long as I used it, I'm chayiv. So who says what? This time the Rav who we're going to prove now that Rav is the one who says that shlichus yad does not need to have caused damage to it in order to be chayiv. The Tanya edro. A shepherd was shepherding his flock, and he took a break. He went to lunch. He came to the city to grab a sandwich. While he was away, a wolf came, Vitaraf, and the wolf came and devoured a lamb. Or a lion came, Vidoras, and he clawed a lamb there. Right? The Rashi says that what's the difference between a wolf and a lamb in terms of and a lion rather, that an Ari ain't tofer eladorsim kom v'ochla. He eats it right in the spot. He claws it and eats it right there. Whereas the wolf, tears it apart and then he takes it back to his abode. Okay, and then he takes it there. But anyway, he says you're potter. Why? He left it and he's potter. Why is he potter? Why do we say he's potter over there? Potter. Don't sin him. It's an accident. He left his head. Isn't it negligent to leave it there? Speaking over there, he went. That was the normal lunchtime. That was the time that everybody took a break. Or another answer is that he was afraid because he heard a lion coming. He had to run away. It was an accident. Okay, it's an accident. He's potter. So that's what the Brisa says. Let's say though he left his stick, his staff, or his satchel, his bag on the animal, then he's chayiv. Chayiv, just the animal. His animal was torn apart by a wild beast, and he's potter for that. But he left his bag or his stick on the animal. He's chayiv. Just because he left his bag or his stick on the animal, he's chayiv. But eventually he took them back. What's the problem? He had left his bag on the animal before, but he took them now. No, the stick and the bag were still on there. So what's the difference if they're still on there? He didn't pull the animal, he didn't steal it in some way. No, he hit the animal with his stick. That's the point. He hit the animal stick for Ratzalafonat. He made a sort of a kinyan, even though he can't really own it, but he made a kinyan like a ganav. But he didn't cause it any damage. And that's called shlichus yad. He's a shomer. And he's chayiv because he sort of took it. And even though there's no loss apparent, so you see, why is he chayiv over here? Because he took it. He took it even though there's no loss. So you see that Rav is the one, and Rav is the author of this. Right? The time goes, what do we say over here? That Omer Rav says that speaking about where the stick was still there, and he had hit it with the stick, and he it's sort of a kinyan, even though that was his misuse. That was how he misappropriated it, even though there's apparently no loss. So there's no proof in there. He weakened it with the stick. That's why he said he didn't just tell it to come and pulled it. He weakened it. He smote it with his stick. Dekanami, and the proof that we're talking about, so he caused some loss to the animal. Dekanami Tani, she kisha b'makol, that he hit it with a stick. Why do you have to hit it with a stick? Just pull the animal, call it to him, whistle to him, so it'll come. It means that he weakened it. Shma mino. So therefore, just the opposite. We're saying over here, since it says he kisha b'makol, it means he weakened it. So Rav is the one who says then that shlichus yad, misuse, when you use you were a shomer and you use the animal, or you use whatever it was that it caused the damage. It's even if there was, we're talking about here where there was some damage to it. So shlichus yad maybe does require a loss. Umir Rav, if Rav is the one that you said dekanami, that he's the one who says that you cause damage to the animal. Umir Rav savar shlichus yad shlichus oren. If Rav holds that again misuse of an item that you were supposed to guard requires a loss in order for you to be chayiv. So Levi savar shlichus yad ain't a shlichus oren. Therefore, we said Rav Levi. One holds that shlichus yad when the Torah says that if a shomer misuses something, he's chayiv to pay. Does it require a loss or not? Well, Rav says we're talking about whether there's a loss. Mashma, the Levi is the one who says that shlichus yad does not require a loss for you to be chayiv. My time of Levi. What's Levi's reasoning? Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So here we get into the psukim. So Rabbi Yochanan says Mishum Rav Yossi ben Norai. It's important to understand. Rabbi Yochanan says this in the name of Rav Yossi ben Norai, and we're going to explain now that Levi holds like Rav Yossi ben Norai because Rabbi Yochanan himself differs. He says Meshuna shlichas yad amur b'shem masachim shlichas yad amur b'shachinim. In both cases, both when the Torah talks about shomachinim in Perek Chaf Beis of Shmos, Pasuk Zion, it says there if you Pasuk Vav and Zion says if you give somebody a watch, shomachinim to watch, and it's stolen, right? If it's stolen, the shomachinim is not chayav for that. If you find the ganav, he pays double. Im lo yimotzei ganav. If you don't find the ganav, then Rabbi says, what is it? We see that means that the shomachinim is taken. It takes the best and he swears im lo shalach yad to make sure that he didn't use it. If he used it, then he's chayav. Then the pasuk goes on in case if he claims that it was stolen and it turns out he was the ganav, he pays kefil, right? We'll talk. Then the pasuk goes on in pasuk tes. That's on a shomer sacha. Shvuas Hashem tiyaven make a shvua im lo shalach yad. So both by shomer and by shomer sacha it says, okay, you're chayiv. You have to swear that you didn't use it, right? You didn't use this item. Okay, so Rabbi Yochanan says, okay, that the shlichas yad that it talks about shomer sacha is different than the ones of shomer. It's different. How is it different? We'll explain in a minute. Ba'ani Omer, and Rabbi Yochanan himself says, Ein Mishana, there is no difference. They're both the same kind of shlichas yad. They're both using it. My Mishana, what does it mean? It's different. According to Rabbi Yosef ben Nurai, and we're explaining that Levi, who says that shlichas yad does not require any damage for you to be chayiv, just you use it, that makes you chayiv in itself. My Mishana, right? Why does it have to say? Why does it say if you used it, you misused it? Basically, you weren't allowed to use it at all. You were just guarding it. It says it both. We just quoted the psukim. It says it both by shomer sacha and by shomer chinim. Why does it say by shomer sacha? V'teisi mishomer chinim learn from shomer chinim. Ma shomer chinim. Ma shomer chinim shepoter g'nei v'aveda. Right? We know shomer chinim is only chayiv on pshia and negligence. He's poter g'nei v'aveda. Shalach bayad. But if he used it, you're chayiv. Shomer sacha, which is a higher degree of responsibility. Shechayiv g'nei v'aveda. He's chayiv even g'nei v'aveda. Lo koshken should certainly be chayiv if he used it. So what do you have to tell me? Why did Hashem tell us that both by shomer sacha, if you use it shalach yad? What do you have to tell me that for? If a shomer chinim is chayiv on shlichus yad, even though he's potter and g'nei v'aveda, so a shomer sacha who's chayiv and aveda should certainly be chayiv if he misused it, meaning he used it in some way. A chiddush over here to tell me not only shlichus yad where there was a loss, but even if you use it and there was no loss, you're chayiv there too. If something happened to it, right? If something happened to it, you're chayiv there too. Shlichus yad ein tzrichus chasaron. Va'ani Omer, and Rabbi Yochanan himself said, ein mishur. There's no difference. Why? Rabbi Lazar, like Rabbi Lazar, the Omer David Achasi. No, the shlichus yad that it says by shomer chinim, the shlichus yad that talks about by shomer sacha, they're both the same. Why? My David Achasi. What do you mean by that? Right? And he goes on to explain mishum deika. What was your kal v'chomer before? Ma'arach shomer chinim, which is poter and g'nei v'aveda, is chayiv on shlichus yad. So shomer sacha, which is chayiv on g'nei v'aveda, shouldn't be chayiv on shlichus yad. Mal shomer chinim shekem misham tashlomei kefil b'toin kanaskana. A shomer chinim pays kefil when, as we said, if lo yitzvasa ganav, if he didn't find the ganav, there was no ganav, because the shomer chinim himself stole it, and it turns out he stole it. So what does he do? He's got to pay double. He has to pay the kefil. Right? He has to pay right? He has to pay the kefil. So shomer chinim pays kefil. Does a shomer sacha ever pay kefil? No. Why? When do you pay kefil? Only on geneva. Well, as soon as the shomer sacha admits that that it's stolen, he pays for it. He's not chayav kefil. A shomer chinim, when do you pay kefil? Either you're a real ganaf and they catch you and there's Adam that you stole it, you burgled it. Fine, you have to pay kefil. Or a shomer chinim who claims that it was stolen. I wasn't negligent, it was stolen. Turns out you were the ganef, you pay kefil. So he says, what are you doing? Kavacham from Shamachinim, Shamachinim, she came Sham Tashlom Kefil, but Toy Taras Ganef when he claimed it was burglarized from him, and it wasn't. So therefore, he doesn't hold it at Kavacham, therefore, it says Shamasacha by both, but it says Shlichus Yad by both, but they're both the same. They both involve loss or don't. Uman delo parach, the one who doesn't ask this kasha of what? Of Malasham Mechim Shekem Tashlom Kefil. He says, Savar, Carnival of Shvua, the Shomer Sacher who has to pay the principal, the Karen, without making a Shvua. As soon as he says it was stolen, he has to pay the Kefil. Adifa, that's more that's a higher degree of responsibility, that's more stringent, Mikfeila B'Shvua. Therefore, he doesn't hold to that Kal V'Chomer. In other words, you have that Kal V'Chomer, the one who doesn't ask that Kal V'Chomer, meaning this Rav Yossi ben Norai, who says, right, you have a Kal V'chomer over here, and he says, what kind of Shmuel is a deeper there? There's a Kal V'chomer. Manasha Mechinam is Potter Gnei V'Reveir is Chayiv on Shlichas Yad. Shamasacher is Chayiv Gnei certainly be Chayiv on Shlichas Yad. I will tell me that Shemachinam has a Chumrah. That's not a Chumrah because paying Karen without a Shvua is more Chumradik than paying Kefil with a Shvua. So all this is to explain that Levi holds that Shlichas Yad does not require a Chisar. In other words, you're Chayiv even if it's not causing any damage. I pointed out Rashi on Amar Aleph points out that in the case of where he was guarding an animal and he put his item on it and then he caused the animal to move. Why isn't that Shol Midas? Shol Midas is only like by an inanimate object where there's no loss involved. But Balei Chayim, when you use them, you're always weakening them, and that's what we mean by Shlichas Yad. So therefore, that's the Shlichas Yad that we were talking about. If Shlichas Yad requires a chesaron, that's usually by an animal, not by like an item like a barrel or something of that sort. So before when we talked about the way Rav Nassan learned it and the way Rav Yaakov learned it, Rav Yaakov said it's stealing. Yeah, he took it on mas to steal, and Rav Nassan said he took it l'shloch bayad. The machlokas is shlichus yad tzarich chesaron. If there was no chesaron, the one who says God tzarich chesaron, it's not shlichus yad. You took it to steal it. You took it to steal it. And the one who says shlichus yad says shlichus yad does not need a chesaron. You took it just to use it. You didn't take it to steal it. But either way, it was unauthorized, and therefore you have some responsibility. Where do you have responsibility? If it had a designated spot back in the Mishnah, we wanted to say those three rabbis hold like that the whole Mishnah goes like a Rishmal, and the Seifa means where the owner had designated a spot for it, and you put it back in the wrong spot. So then then you're responsible. Then you're responsible even in that case. However, Rabbi Yochanan says no. The Seifa of the Mishnah goes like Rabbi Kiva. He doesn't like to say that because you didn't really take it. You just used it. You just used it. You moved it to use it as a ladder or whatever, and that's more of Shol Shlamidas. Rav Amar, back in Agamar, Rav Amar, lo tam shlichas yad lo b'sham mechina v'lo b'sham masach. Rav gives a different shot. He says, even according to Rabbi Elazar who said what that Shomer Sachar and Shamachinim are both the same. Mean darachas. You can't say a kal v'chomer for one. You can't say a kal v'chomer for Shamachinim to Shomer Sachar because Shamachinim has a different stringency. You're chayav kefil. He says no. Rav Amar lo tam shlichas yad lo b'sham mechinim v'lo b'sham masach. You really need it anyway. If you were a Elazar who holds of that kal v'chomer. Rabbi Elazar holds they're both the same because you could ask the Kal V'chomer from Shamachinim to Shomer Sachar. Even according to Rabbi Elazar, you could also say that you could also explain that Shlichus Yad does not require a loss or damage to the item. Rabbi Elazar doesn't have to eat V'lo b'sham masachar. It takes me short. Why don't you learn from Shoel? A Shoel, what is a Shoel? Guy who borrows it. Is he chayiv when he uses it? Of course he's chayiv. He's chayiv for any damage that happens to it, and he had permission. So learn a kal v'chomer from Shoel. Mashal de ladas ba'al but he did it with the owner's permission, and still, right? The shelf bayad, right? Mashal de ladas ba'al he did it. The shelf bayad chayiv, and if he used it, he's chayiv to pay for damages. Shomer chinim v'shomer sachar lo koshkein, who are not authorized to use it. Shomer chinim and shomer sachar are allowed to guard it. They're not allowed to use it. So this is surely mechayev for misusing it. Loma nemer. So why did it say shomer chinim and shomer sachar? Oh, loma l'chashlichas yad. One is to tell you shlichas yad ain't shlichas chasaron. In other words, you didn't have to say before. We were talking about why did it say shlichas yad by shomer sachar? We already know by shomer chinim to tell me that shlichas yad does not require a loss for you to be chayev, right? Even if you didn't damage it. So now he says, I don't need either one. I could learn off from Shoel. Loma nemer. Why did it say both of them? One, to teach me shlichus yad doesn't need chesaron. Tell me that chiddush. If you learn from Shoel, Shoel has also a leniency. What's that? That if the owner is with you or anywhere around, we'll talk about later on, you're putter. Right? It says if the bomb's not there, you only have bombs not there. So you shouldn't say, well, if you're learning out from Shoel, you'll say, well, just like Shoel, if you're putter, if the bomb's there, same thing by Shemachim and Shomer Sachar. No, to tell you that you don't say that. Dial means if you're learning from a Kal V'chomer, cannot be any worse, any stronger than the Kal V'chomer. If you're learning out that Shomer Chinim and Shomer Sachar are chayiv and shlichas yad based on a Shoel, Madach Shoel who has permission is chayiv if he uses it. So certainly a Shomer Sachar and a Shomer Chinim who's not allowed to use it. But if you're learning out from Shoel, you'll say that if the owner's there, you should be putter just like we're a Shoel. Shelo Talmud Menadim Lioskedad Mashal B'Balam Potter Avsham Mechinim V'Sham Masachar Potter Kamashmal. That's why you have two psukim. In other words, the basic idea that a Sham Mechinim or Sham Masachar who uses something that they shouldn't use is chayiv. That we know from Makava Chomer from Shoel. Why does it say it then, both by Sham Mechinim and Sham Masachar? One, to teach me you're chayiv even when there's no loss involved, you didn't damage it, and secondly, to tell me that you shouldn't learn it out totally from Shoel, because if you learn from Shoel, you'll say that just like by Shoel, if you did it, if the owner is there, you're potter. The same thing with Sham Mechinim and Sham Masachar, also you'd be potter. Kamashma not. Oh, so that's all. If you learn that Sham, like we said, like that, like Levi and like Rav Yosef ben Nehorai, that shlichus yad does not require any loss for you to be chayav. That the only time you're chayav is when if there's a loss, if you damaged it. So hani tarti shlichus yad lamli. What do I need these psukim for? Right? What do I need for? So one chadash shelo tamadayel me'adem lioskedad. One to tell me that if you learn out from Shoel, you'll say that what? That's just like by Shoel. If you did it but balim, if the owner was there, you're potter. Sham mechinim sham masach also you'd be potter. So to teach me that the idach with kedatanya, to teach me that you have to make a shvuah. Kedatanya v'nikav abayis elo Elohim. It says in the pasuk, right? It says by Sham mechinim. It says im lo yimotzei agana. If you can't find the God, if he claims it was stolen, the nikar balabayis Elohim, the balabayis will come to the owner will take the shomer to the court. That means to the court. That we say over here, Elohim means the Bezdin. V'nikra of Eladayonim, and he'll swear to make sure that he didn't use it. How do you know it means swearing? It says make mice, maybe just a claim. By later on, by Shomer Sachar says Shvuas Hashem Tia Ben Shneim. When the Shomer Sachar claims that it was an accident, it broke, it died, something happened to it, I'm potter. It says there Shvuas Hashem Tia Ben Shneim Im Lo Shalach Yad Machas Re'eu. There it says Shvuas Hashem. How do I know by Shemachinam? Also, you have to make a shvuah. Kedatanya v'nikol v'ayis elim that says by Shemachinam l'shvuah. It's for a shvuah. Atom l'shvuah ein el did. Maybe just like come to court, but he doesn't have to swear that it was stolen or whatever. That Shemachinam who gets off by saying it was lost or stolen, maybe doesn't think it's shvuah. It says never shlichus yad l'mata. It says shlichus yad by Shomer Sachar. Then never shlichus yad l'mala by Shemachinam. Malo and b'shvuah just like over there it's by shvuah because there it says shvuah Hashem tia ben shneim. By Shomer Sachar. Afkan l'shvuah, so that's what you need. That's why it says shlichus yad by both. One to teach me that you don't learn it out just from Shoel, because then you'd be potter if the balam was there. And the second one to teach me the Shomer Sachar that a Shomer Chinam also makes a shvuah, even though by Shomer Sachar who has to swear that it was an accident because he's chayv and g'nei v'naveda, he has to swear. It says shvuah shem t'yem shneim, and it also says im lo shalach yad. That's why it says shalach yad by Shomer Chinam to teach me that just like by Shomer Sachar where it says b'feiver shvuah Hashem means to make a shvuah. By Shomer Chinam also, when it says Menikah Bayis Elohim, he comes to court, it means he has to make a shvuah, he has to swear that it was either lost, stolen, accident, that he was not negligent, and then he's off the hook. All right, we'll pick it up from the Mishnah tomorrow from Daf Mem Beis. Chodesh Tov l'kulam b'sorot tovot.